the best lessons are the hardest lessons to take at the time.
MasterChef, Jamie Oliver's Show 15. Our next guest for the Ask the Professional series is one of the most well-respected food professionals in Australia and possibly the world. He has worked with people like Gordon Ramsay, Heston Blumenthal, and Jamie Oliver. Glenn Flood has had an amazing career as a director of culinary, food producer, consultant, and keynote speaker. I'm very excited to welcome Glenn to the show. Hi, Glenn.
Gaia, very, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So I guess let's dive into the question. How did you get into MasterChef?
Well, look, in essence, I answer my phone when it rings, and I was doing some TV, some food producing at the time, and I was working with a TAFE organisation down in Melbourne, and they had an inquiry for someone to help with some auditions. And they said, it sounds really left field, Glenn, and we didn't know what to do. So we thought of you because you do really left field kind of things. And they just called to say, can you help? Yeah. And, unbeknownst, what MasterChef was and how it was going to come together. So it turned out that I was the audition applicant to for all the judges to come in and judge as we were trying to select who were going to be the initial MasterChef judges.
Amazing. So these were the first, I'm assuming just when MasterChef began?
Yeah, so before filming, that's where I recruited Gary, George, and Matt. Ended up to be the mix that we came to, but it was it was about 60 or 70 of the top chefs from around the country all coming into audition. So I was pretending to be the contestant that couldn't cook, and they had to engage with me, and it was very entertaining because they knew me. Yeah. But yet I was in character and they had to draw out some information. So I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah. But also, just had to harass them a little bit too.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess on the topic MasterChef, what was your typical day on set on MasterChef like?
Yeah, very intense shoot schedule. We would have, up to 12 cameras running, and there'd be maybe 40 or 50 people around. That's just crew, plus the contestants on top of. So for me, it would be up at about 5 a.m., hit down to the studio, check the produce in for the day, set up the day's challenge, check in with the talent, so our MasterChef judges, think about what was coming up. So I was trying to plan the next week or two in terms of reconnaissance and offsite challenges, and then motivating my team, then dealing with all the top international talent and time trialing and testing their product to make it right for camera. And in between that, you're sitting in meetings with the exec director and some uber creative people, very, very talented. And then with my crew, so I had a small team of 5, we would be back testing everything. So a particular dish that was cooked, then we would reverse engineer it and make sure that we had all the grammages and all the directions right, so that if it went to publication, like, a magazine or onto a website, that it was ready for a consumer like yourself just to pick it up and go, I'm going to cook it.
That's amazing. It's incredible. And I guess going off that as well, I'm assuming you love food. Why are you passionate about it?
Yeah, look, it's passion. It can be an obsession as well. I like to do things well, but the food itself, I find, is a very engaging medium. What I mean by that is it's very sensory, right? Like, so the crunch of a lettuce, or, watching something sort of caramelize, or smelling it or tasting it. So it brings all the senses together. So I find it very, very engaging as just as a product. And I think it's great, food in particular, because everyone in the world must eat. You cannot not eat. Therefore, we all have something to talk about, and it's all the same produce. There's just different ways of putting it together.
Beautiful. And I guess, how many years of experience do you have in the food industry?
So 23 to 24, I think, this year. I sort of lost track, but yeah, definitely over 2 decades. Formal chef's apprenticeship, so 4 years that was to learn the craft. And then I've been fortunate to cook around the world in a range of different places, 5-star hotels, Michelin star restaurants, cafes, banquets, cruise liners, all kinds of crazy stuff in between. So it's certainly a trade that can open a lot of avenues if you like to travel.
Amazing. And I guess it seems like you've had success earlier in life. How did you get there?
There's no easy way. It's dedication and hard work. I like to think that it's really about the hours that you invest in. So I've never really counted the hours that I've applied to my trade. To me, it's, a 7.5, 8 hour day doesn't really exist. But if you put more in, you get more out. So if you like something and pursue it, then the more hours you put in, the quicker you'll develop your area of expertise. And for me in my craft, I've always stepped in front of a challenge. So when something makes me really nervous, or I feel sick in my stomach because of feeling really challenged, then I think to myself, that's probably the right environment for me, and I put myself into it so I can sort of fake it till I make it.
That is a valuable advice. I guess, do you think it was a straightforward path to where your career is now?
Look, there's the great thing about hospitality is there's just so many different avenues. And so when I went through the chef's apprenticeship, it was a standard 4 years. I believe it's 3 years now. But the social media and communication, the access to opportunities, this wasn't as pronounced as it is now. So through being involved with MasterChef, that in my mind was sort of like the tipping point for food media in Australia, really opened things up. So now there's great marketing budgets, there's great retail campaigns, there's people that are very talented in food that maybe don't come from a traditional chef's apprenticeship, but you can actually make your own way and promote product to the mass market and do very well out of it. So, I think that, I probably followed a more traditional format in terms of training, working overseas, learning things at a deeper level, and then bringing it back to the country. But the media was just a little curveball, and it just opened my mind up to a greater way to leverage. In this day and age, you can actually, through your social media platforms, you can create yourself a great little following very quickly. So there's a lot easier ways to do it now, but you still need to be dedicated and you still need to put the hours in.
I guess, what are you working on now?
So right now, I work for myself. I'm a consultant, and I work with a range of businesses involved in food, whether they be through retail positioning or restaurant operators. I work with some shopping centers, and so I coach and mentor sort of managers in marketing that are thinking about customer service and how they engage their consumers. I'll work with food and beverage operators that are looking to level up and lead teams. And I do a lot of work as well with different chefs that have found themselves in management roles, running multi-million-dollar operations that maybe don't have the management skill or the formal training to go with the skill set that they have. So I help bridge that gap and allow them to be the best version of themselves.
Is there any project that you're working on in specific that you're very much involved in or interested in at this point?
Well, we've got some top secret things on the go. There's always, and I could share it, but then it wouldn't be top secret anymore. No, look, I'm only kidding. Look, nothing of a high profile, like media wise. I'm not doing a lot in front of the camera at the moment. I'm just enjoying, especially during this sort of period of lockdown. I'm down in Melbourne, so it's a little bit quiet, and the food industry is just a little bit different right now, a little bit uncertain. So I've taken the time to launch a podcast. That's been a lot of fun. It's called Kitchen Therapy, with a good friend of mine, Toby Puttick, and Toby's good mates with Jamie Oliver. So we worked together for many years with the 15 Foundation. So we're just interviewing some of the top culinary icons around the country, like Maggie Beer and Gabrielle Gatte and Scott Pickett, Ben Shuri, who's one of the top ranked chefs in the country. And so we're just unpacking the kitchen journey and really enjoying that creative pursuit at the moment.
Amazing. I guess just touching off that, how do you think COVID has affected food industry? And I guess you personally, you just dived into a little bit, but if you could tell us more about it.
Yeah, it's been really difficult because hospitality is a very cash flow based industry. And when the government forces you to close your doors and says you cannot trade, even with takeaway options, there's no way you can sustain your business at that level. So a lot of the operators I'm talking to, and I'm speaking to hundreds of business owners and chefs every month, revenue drops from between 50 and 80%. And when your business is 80% down on revenue for a matter of 5 or 6 months, very, very hard to recover from. So it's definitely sent ripples, not just through Australia, but around the country. And I don't know if the full impact will be known for another 18 to 24 months, because we've got this financial year to run. And I think there's a lot of operators that are going to really struggle to open their doors. And if they can open, they're going to find it really hard for the next 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's tough for everyone right now in the industry. So why did you get into the food industry?
Yeah, great question. When I'd left school, so I finished year 12, and I got into I think it was a Bachelor of Economics at uni, and I thought this could be interesting, but as I dived into it, I didn't really have a passion or enthusiasm for going to uni, so I deferred. I thought, oh well, I'll go another time. And a friend of mine was working at a small hotel and said, Glenn, we've got a job as a concierge. Come and have a look. So I started working there, and first full-time paycheck. Quite enjoyed the earning, and it was a very social, very fun environment. But in particular, I used to do the room service in the evenings. So a little bit of cooking, just some tortellinis and club sandwiches, and nothing too difficult. But the chefs always seemed to be having fun. So in the hotel, when you're running back a house, you're always going through the kitchens, and it was the sounds and the sights and the madness going on. It just felt right. And so when I was ready to leave being a concierge, at the time, there were so many jobs advertised for chefs. I thought, well, let's learn something. Be great to be able to cook and maybe impress the ladies. You never know. And never be out of a job. So, in my mind, an unemployed chef is just either disengaged or lazy, because there's so much work around if you want to do it. So with that in mind, I jumped in and started an apprenticeship.
That's awesome. It's quite a story. I guess, has Australia changed in terms of food preference since you started your career?
Oh, in terms of food preference, Australia is a very cool place. And I was speaking with a French chef that I trained under, very, very well-noted Frenchman, Daniel Galamiche. And he's a Michelin star chef in the UK. And we were just talking just this week, and he was reflecting on Australia and traveling and how cosmopolitan our palates are in Australia. Whereas in England, when I worked over there, it was, Michelin star, like top end restaurant or pub food, and that was it. There was no middle ground. Whereas I think here in Australia, we're absolutely spoiled for, you can get great Vietnamese, you can get great Chinese, you can get beautiful Mexican, because we're happy as a country. We're happy to explore and support people. So we're actually in a great place where that many other nationalities want to come in. It creates this great melting pot of cuisines. So you can have your fill of even great Italian, great French food. So there's something for everyone. Has that changed over the duration? Yeah, we're getting more refined. We're getting more niched, more specific. So, like the Italian restaurant back in the day might have been lasagna and a pasta. And, today it's a handmade gnocchi. It's something delicious, from Sicily. It's getting more regional specific. So I think that as Aussies love to travel around the country and look at experiences and learn and appreciate, then we come back home and think, why can't we get that here? And in most instances, we can if we look for it.
It is a beautiful thing being able to have food, be accessible so easily, and so diverse amount of food as well. I guess, what's something that you ate now that you didn't or wouldn't eat as a kid?
Oh, got to be Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts growing up. I mean, like, my mum's a good cook, right? She's a good cook, but we used to have the old steamed Brussels sprouts, like no seasoning, no butter, just nothing, just steamed. bang on the plate. And I remember just trying to hide them anywhere I could on the plate, like under the plate or under the, maybe the lamb bone or something like that. And I just hated them. They were disgusting. And, fast forward as your palate develops and your palate changes over the years, you like different things. And I had this mind-blowing deep fried Brussels sprouts recipe, right, that I was just playing with. Blanched Brussels sprouts, then deep fried so they go really crispy, almost burnt. And then when they come out and they're still hot, you toss them through with toasted walnuts, fresh mint, honey, white balsamic. And I'll tell you, it is absolutely mind-blowing. So that's something that I've had a definite paradigm shift across, because back in the day, I would never touch them.
It's funny you say that, because I'm actually a big Brussels sprouts fan, and I also have my little secret recipe too. It's similar to yours, but I'll keep it a secret. I might share in the future.
No,
Yeah.
I want to know.
It's a lot of salt and a lot of garlic and a lot of delicious butter, the good kind of butter.
Yeah, it's great. So, in my mind, if you don't like a food, you maybe haven't had it prepared in the right way. So a good chef can manipulate it and add a few things on so that, it can definitely entice the palate.
Amazing. What do you think is an important skill for people to have entering into hospitality industry?
Look, hospitality, it's everything's learnable, right? You're not necessarily born with a gift. It's all developed skill and developed knowledge by just through hours and dedication. So I think the mindset is probably a big one. So having the right attitude and definitely being a people person. Hospitality and restaurants are very, very engaging, very social environments. So, whether you're bouncing off your front of house staff or your sommeliers, your team behind the bar, or you're working with the kitchen, there's a real sense of teamwork and camaraderie. So it's not something you can do by yourself. If you prefer to be working alone and isolated and doing your thing, it's probably not the environment for you.
Amazing. What do you think is going to happen to the hospitality industry in the next 2 to 3 years in Australia?
Ooh, wow. I'll tell you what, if I knew the answer to that, then I would be at the forefront of things, because it's the guessing game right now, where because of COVID and the ripple impact that it's having and still having globally, it's very uncertain. If I had to sort of theorize on a couple of things that'll come out of it, I think there'll definitely be a move back towards just comfort food, just that nostalgic and not getting too risky and things that just as people we like to eat and that we find very comforting. That can happen subconsciously rather than getting out and trying cutting edge cuisine. It's now time just to be familiar, because the world's shifted so much and there's so many things that we used to take for granted that we can't. I definitely think, the rise in outdoor dining is just has to continue because of the space, and then the ability, August, when you've got government locking down environments and saying, one person per every 4 square meters, it's very restrictive and very hard for businesses to make a living like that. And I think one of the big things that I don't know if customers are going to love, that customers are going to have to start paying more for food. That's it. The days of going out and having an amazing 3-course meal for $50, it just can't happen, because the labor's too expensive, the produce is too expensive, and now reduced trading in restaurants, it's going to spill on, and ultimately, hopefully customers are going to be more appreciative and be grateful that they can actually go out and have this great experience. Others that don't or can't afford, they'll just be eating more at home, and that's not a bad thing. I think there's been a good surge in home cooking, definitely from the people I'm in touch with, and what I'm seeing back to, making your own sourdough at home. I made a load of dumplings the other day and some gyozas as well. And I'm just really having a lot of fun just because it's, I've got time. So when you've got time, take time.
And there's not also bad things about quarantine. It's been great for a lot of people, baking and cooking.
Absolutely.
The next thing would be more on the mentorship side. Do you think it's important to have a mentor or coach for your career? And if so, why? If not, why not?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan, and it's what I do. A lot. I've got about always about 15 to 20 different clients at any one time that I'm working one-on-one strategically with, to challenge them and their growth. because a good mentor can just guide you through and show you that there's pathways to go along and help catapult your journey in the right direction. The old way of doing it, of trial and error, well, you'd rather not go through the erroring if you can. If you've got someone to guide you on the way through, that's great. And I think in the current climate, the ability to access good coaches and mentors is a lot more pronounced now than it was when I remember going through school. You might have had a coach or someone like a sporting coach or something that used to yell at you, but you didn't understand why they were yelling and the way they were conducting. So as a young person, you might kind of shut down or just think this guy's carrying on and I don't really feel right in this environment, and just leave. Whereas the understanding now that sometimes it takes that to get the best performance or the best driver, which works really well for some people. For other people, it just doesn't work at all. I believe that now in this current age, that a lot more businesses are open to employing and engaging coaches and mentors to come in to work with their teams and develop them, develop their mindset, and then the individuals can go and learn the skills they need for their specific job.
Amazing. Did you have someone in your life that guided you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one I can think of, a good friend of mine, Corinne Armour. And when I was working at Jamie Oliver's 15, I took on a role that was, in a philanthropic organization. I had a crew of 20 young people from a range of really crazy backgrounds, through drug and alcohol abuse or homelessness, and just sort of really struggling day to day. And they were all reporting to me. So all of a sudden I'm thrust into this coaching and sort of mentoring role, which I found really challenging, and I didn't have the techniques and the skills to do it. I was just a cook. I was doing what I was doing. And through that, spending so much time with them, and I was clocking in, 80 to 100 hours a week sort of on the tools, and I was very fatigued, and I just started burning out. And the director I had at the foundation said, look, I've got a really good friend who works with Leadership Victoria, and you should meet her and she might be able to help you. And so, we just introduced and grabbed a coffee. But Corinne had come from a corporate background at ANZ, done a lot of high-end coaching, and she'd done this leadership program. And as part of the program with Leadership Victoria, she needed to do some pro bono work. So she picked me up as a client and just helped me through a time that was really mentally and physically challenging for me. I was just, I had a son. So, firstborn, he's, a couple of months old, and I'm doing all this workload and just taking so much emotionally on. She gave me the tools and techniques just to work through it and just open my mind to, the positive side of things and how I could move forward. So that was, really, really pivotal part for me. And even today, now that I'm a coach, I have a coach. So there's always more people that I can draw and learn from, and that helps me. If I'm stuck in a bad situation, or I need some different ideas or another perspective to put together some framework for a client, I've got someone I can draw on and say, hey, what's the next level? Because there's always a next level.
That's awesome. Do you think working alongside the right kind of person or organization is important?
Yeah, you've got to find an environment that you thrive. So it's putting yourself in a situation that is really tough, and that you're waking up every day and just either hating going to work, or not engaged with the team you're in. You've got to have a really good look at yourself and think, well, what is it? Is it that I'm uncomfortable because I'm out of my depth here? Am I running an imposter syndrome because they think that I'm better than I am? Or am I challenged? And, once you can reflect on that personally, then you've got to think about how you're turning up in the work environment. Because if you're not bouncing some good energy around the office or with your team, well, you can't expect any back. It's a two-way street. So the more you give energetically, the more you'll receive back, and that's a good way to grow.
Amazing. And I guess, what would you tell your 20-year-old self now?
Oh, wow. Look, you know what? I'd just have a good laugh with my 20-year-old self that thought he knew something but really didn't know anything. and reflect back at just probably know that the best lessons are the hardest lessons to take at the time. Like when you really think it's tough, you really think there's no light at the end of the tunnel and there's no way forward and it looks bleak. That's when you're really, really learning. But it takes a level of maturity to be able to reflect back on it and appreciate the lesson at the time. So probably I'd say as well, just take a breath and don't take yourself too seriously, because just relax. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. All is going to roll on.
I think that's a great advice. So that ends our time with Glenn today. For those interested in hearing more from him, tune into his podcast, Kitchen Therapy. He's had amazing guests like Maggie Beers and many more to come. Again, thank you, Glenn, for joining us today. Don't forget to follow Glenn's journey on Facebook and Instagram, and he's also got his website, glennflood.com.au. Thanks, Glenn.
Pleasure.